Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Kathleen Walter. The story of an unlikely friendship during the war in Iraq is now the subject of a fascinating new book. During what was the bloodiest month of the war, Emmy Award-winning television news reporter Don Teague, now with CBS, and his Iraqi translator Rafraf Barrak found themselves in a very dangerous situation, but looked beyond themselves for an answer out. Their story of faith, courage, and transformation is chronicled in Saved by Her Enemy, an Iraqi woman's journey from the heart of the war to the heartland of America. Don Teague, Rafraf Barrak, welcome to Newsmax TV.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
First, congratulations on the book to you both. Talk to us about this incredible journey that is your friendship and why you decided to put your story on paper.
Sure. Well, it's not something I think either of us planned. In fact, I know we didn't plan to write a book about this. The friendship started in 2004 when I was sent basically for relief in Iraq to relieve our full-time correspondent who spent months at a time there, and I spent about 5 weeks there. And Rafraf was the translator who was assigned basically to me in the bureau there. And so we worked together pretty much every day during that time. And you know, I discovered her to be an intelligent, bright young woman who seemed like she was longing for something more than the life that was available to her in Iraq. And we had an incident, which we write about in the book, where we were hit by an IED, and it was a very close call, and we both survived. But I think that really galvanized my understanding of the situation and made me sort of realize that she wasn't going to survive if she stayed there. She was actually being targeted by insurgents. And so ultimately, my wife and I decided we would work to get Rafraf out of the country and bring her to the U.S. and actually make her a part of our family if we could pull it off. And it wasn't easy.
Rafraf, what was life under Saddam Hussein like?
It was different. It was more like if you mind your own business, you will be safe in a way, as long as you don't talk about the government. There was a lot of restrictions. There weren't enough freedoms of speech or actions in any way over there. But we survived it by just trying to always stay on the cautious side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the idea of free speech was sort of a foreign concept to Rafraf. She and I had a conversation in Baghdad that we write about in the book, where she was telling me that, you know, people who were imprisoned or even maybe killed by the government there sort of brought on to themselves what happened because they broke the rules that were established there. They said bad things about the government. And I said, well, you know, that's not the way the world works. And she said, well, sure it is. You know, if George Bush hears people say bad things about him, he's going to kill them or at least throw them in prison. And I said, no, that's not how democracy works. You know, there are half the people in the country don't like him. They have marches in the street about how much they don't like him, and that's what democracy is and freedom of speech. It was a foreign concept.
Rafraf, you were raised to believe America was the enemy, yet you found yourself rescued by an American. You and Don had very different views of the war, as you mentioned, President Bush and Saddam Hussein's regime. How have those views changed now that you're here in the States?
Well, taking the consideration that I grew up in a country where we had more than just one war with America at a time, so I always was scared of the whole American, effect and concept that would come to my culture and affect it in any way. And coming now to America and having lived now for 5 years here in the States, I'm embracing it in a way where I can actually find myself looking up for the future.
Now American troops begin to withdraw from Iraq this summer, and the debate over President Bush's decision to invade still continues. Don, Rafraf, in your opinions, was it the right thing to do?
Well, I'm not really sure, but that's just my opinion. I'm not speaking for the whole country. I hear from my family that there is a lot of good that's happening right now and a lot of progress. Things are getting better, but they are getting better slower. Mm-hmm. And my fear is if they pull out sooner, then it will just affect the progress into setting it back instead of setting it forward. So.
Yeah, and I think as we come on the elections, really it's about looking forward and realizing that Rafraf, she represented one Iraqi who was working with Americans and was targeted for death for doing so. But there are tens of thousands of Iraqis who have willingly gone to work for the U.S. military, American companies, and contractors, and they're being targeted as well. So the question is, at this point, what next? If we pull out all of our troops and, at the end of the summer, or the majority of the combat troops, who protects those people from what some people worry will be a bloodbath of what they call American-affiliated Iraqis?
Now, I know that you wrote about the role of faith in your decisions and in your transformation and successfully getting Rafraf here to the States. Explain to us, if you will, what role faith did play and what your family's reactions were.
For me, my family was not really happy with the idea that I was leaving, but at the same time, it was the choice that I gave my mom. And I said, listen, things are getting really, really dangerous with my work, and I have this opportunity, and I'm pretty sure that thousands of people here are longing for such an opportunity here. And she said, well, that's better than coming back to me in a in a box, basically. So she gave me that permission to go and leave and lead that life that I chose for myself. It was, as for the faith, she always, the faith there is something that is so important to her. And she just wanted me to have that faith with me along the way to be strong enough to continue. So,
yeah, my wife and I, we're a Christian family, and we, regularly attend church and things like that. It's not something we just pay lip service to. And we tried to put all of this in some sort of perspective when we're asking someone who at the time is a Muslim from a country that we're at war with, and do we want to bring that person that we really don't know very much about into our home, basically create a big sister for our two daughters, and that becomes part of the family dynamic. And what we ultimately decided was that as Christians, our mission in life, beyond loving God and putting our trust there, is in loving our neighbors. And it doesn't have to be someone who's next door. This neighbor happened to be 7,000 miles away. But she was specifically someone in need. So when I proposed this idea to my wife, and you can imagine the phone call when you call home and say, I've met this girl, I'm thinking of bringing her home, what do you think? What my wife's reaction was, if you think that's what God's leading you to do, and you think we can help her, then absolutely we'll do everything we can.
Now, President Obama has preached diplomacy in hopes of changing anti-American perceptions in the Middle East. Don, you played a big role in changing Rafraf's perceptions, but in the big picture, what progress do you both see there in quelling this anti-American sentiment?
I think that I'm speaking for Iraqis and the people that I know in particular over there, that most of us look up to the change that's happening right now in the country as one step ahead, that we could bring our country back together. And I've worked with the Americans, I've became friends with them, and the people I had talked to recently that were working there and also had became friends with them, we are all sharing this idea that if they're helping us, we might also try to help ourselves, and that is kind of like a push to all of us to continue moving forward.
Yeah.
So,
and I think ultimately, I didn't change Rafraf. Freedom and opportunity changed Rafraf.
Don, you put your life on the line to bring the story of the war to the American public, but a lot of people have questioned the mainstream media and its reporting of the war effort and whether they've been getting a true and accurate picture of what's gone on over there. How do you respond to media critics?
Well, it's easy to be a critic of the media. I mean, we're just people and we're all muddling through. I never knew anyone that I worked with who I thought set out with an agenda, a negative agenda, a positive agenda necessarily. I can tell you that when I went to Iraq, I was hoping to find some positive stories, because we see enough of the negative, and there's positive mixed in there. Something has to be working. What I found is that it's very difficult to cover the positive because it's dangerous. right? The insurgents specifically don't want good news getting out. So the day we were very nearly killed, and we weren't injured, but it was a close call, was a day that we had set up, really been intentional to go and find a positive story and show the American people something of positive change. And the insurgents, they weren't going to stand for that.
Is there any one message in particular that you'd like your readers to take away from this book? And do either of you envision a future in which you will return to Iraq?
Definitely. Hopefully one day when things get back to normal, it gets a little bit safer, I can go back and I can see my family. I miss them so much.
You know, when you peel away the layers of things that make us different, we're all humans. For the most part, we have the same desires, the desires to take care of our families, to find someone that we care about, to start our own family, all of those things. And then again, I go back to this thing about freedom. I think it's just my personal thing as an American that the natural state of humans is to desire freedom. So I think that that's what I would want people to bring away from this, to see America through Rafraf's eyes as someone who had been raised to fear, dislike, and even hate this country, but who ultimately has learned to embrace it when you understand the things that come with freedom.
All right, the book is Saved by Her Enemy. CBS News' Dawn Teague and Rafraf Barrak, congratulations again on the book, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.
Sarah Palin's new book, Going Rogue in American Life, will be released on November 17th. You can be among the first to get your copy. Check out our incredible free offer for Sarah's new book. Just go to Newsmax.com and click on the top banner for this great offer. Act today.